Oh, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Final Word with MattyB here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network for this lovely Monday, October the 28th, 2024. We're back to bring you the latest and greatest and all that other stuff. Yes, your most influential hour of your sports day, of your Philadelphia sports day. Provided and given to you by the most influential person in your Philadelphia sports life, yours truly, MattyB. And as always, we are being brought to you by the It's a Wrap Sports Network. So please click the like and subscribe button down below on our YouTube platform where you can help us out. And we're streaming out on a multiple level of different sort of streaming profile platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and places like that. So great to be back. Another week is upon us. Another fun week of Philadelphia and sports in general is upon us, and we got a lot to go over tonight. Of course, the big story in town, Philadelphia Eagles. Perhaps their most complete game since last November 26th against the Buffalo Bills. 37-17, convincing victory over an actual Super Bowl contending team in the Cincinnati Bengals, and they did it in the way that I don't know if the ownership is going to like it, but I think it is definitely safe to say that this team is now officially a rushing attack type of team. Whether or not that holds up, whether or not that's acceptable, remains to be seen. But so far, you cannot argue with the results. They have gone undefeated in the month of October. Undefeated as they pushed a record now to 5-2. Still chasing them pesky Washington Commanders in the NFC East. But are they making believers out of me? Well, not really, but they're definitely showing a lot of heart and a lot of resolve. And we're going to break down this Bengal game. Is there still some concerns about the lethargic offense in the first quarter? Now we're up to 7 games that they have not scored any first quarter points. Yes, there are still some concerns. Are you going to win a Super Bowl with a team that starts off so slow offensively? I'm not saying you can't, but they're definitely making it harder on themselves. Is their defense for real? We saw yesterday that the defense on that first Bengal drive was atrocious. Their defense throughout the day was that bend, don't break type thing. They pressured Burrow. They pressured him. They didn't bring the house like they brought against the Giants and they brought against the Browns, but we've kind of knew that going into the game that Fangio, I guess, respects certain different quarterbacks or respects certain different offensive attacks. And when you have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, obviously you're going to have to lend a certain level of respect to that. So he brought pressure. He brought a lot more pressure than he did against Baker Mayfield. So you got to be pleasantly surprised about that. And most importantly, the biggest takeaway for me yesterday, well, there's 2 big takeaways. First one is the fact that the defense came up with 2 turnovers, and the second one was the reemergence or the reappearance of Devontae Smith into the Philadelphia Eagle offense, which were huge. As a matter of fact, we discussed that on the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn on Thursday, and I brought the question up, what was it going to take to get Devontae Smith back into the offense? And that 49-yard bomb down the seam or straight down the middle of the field was a beautiful pass and even more beautiful catch. So we're going to break down some Eagles. Of course, it's Victory Monday or whatever, the day after. We're going to get into that, but that'll probably be the main story that drives the train tonight. But we're going to try to work in other stuff because we got to work in other stuff. The Flyers were in action this weekend. I'm a hockey guy, and they went 1-1 over the weekend in a Wild game on Saturday against the Wild, and then yesterday a lethargic game that a lot of people got excited, and I did the post game last night, and I was one of them who got somewhat excited by that fast and furious frenzy at the end to try to get at least a tie out of that thing, but they fell short. But the obvious trends with this team right now are not good. The obvious trends of this team are more and more speaking daily that last year was an anomaly, and this year, and this version of the Philadelphia Flyers, the rebuilding version in year 2, is the real deal. We'll get into some Flyers talk. We're going to get into some World Series talk because the Yankees are on life support right now in the World Series, down 2-0 and trailing tonight in Game 3. So we'll talk some World Series. We got some day in Philadelphia sports history, and as well as our prospect of the night. And then, of course, my favorite segment of all time is my card review segment that we'll do every night here on the program, where I take a card from my vast, I tell you, sports card collection, and we just kind of have fun with it. Talk about the card, maybe talk about some value of the card, talk about some intrinsic value, some perhaps memories that it might have listed from my childhood, and stuff like that. We'll discuss that. We did it. We debuted it, I should say, last week, and it was very successful. I enjoyed it, and we'll continue it on tonight. And then we'll do some scoreboard watching tonight as well, as we will go over some NHL and MLB, or NHL and NFL scores as we're getting to the end of Week 8. So hang on for the ride tonight, folks. So great to be here, back with you for another week. Pat, what's up, man? How you been? I hope you had a prosperous weekend. And actually, let's start it off as we do every weekend, or every night. That is with your day in Philadelphia sports history. Brought to you by the fine folks here at It's a Wrap Sports, which really just includes me. Brought to you by me. I mean, me saying brought to you by me. Does that sound a little bit too egomaniacal? Should I not say that? Should I refer to the It's a Wrap Sports Network as this conglomeration of people when it really is just me? Maybe that's in my mind. I think it's a conglomeration of a lot of people. Maybe that's what I ultimately hope it is at one point, but it is brought to you by the great folks at the It's Sports Wrap. And I implore you, I am on my knees begging you, actually, to like and subscribe on the YouTube platform and also our Facebook page. The link to all that stuff is in the description of the show below you. If you're watching this on YouTube or anywhere else, it's down there. So just find our Facebook page, like it or follow it so we can continue to grow it. But this night in Philadelphia sports history, as we are not going to leave baseball, because we have a baseball moment in Philadelphia sports history, maybe a little bit lesser than a lot of people might remember, but there used to be a time in this town where there were 2 baseball teams. Matter of fact, that was kind of what it was a long time ago for a lot of cities. Chicago, which still has 2. New York, which still has 2, but they were 2 different teams. Boston had 2. Now, major cities back in the day had a National League and American League representation, and Philadelphia was, of course, not immune to that, as the Phillies and the A's shared the same city for years. And ultimately, the A's were actually the more successful of the Philadelphia baseball franchises. They have a crap ton more World Series championships. They won a crap ton more World Series championships as the Philadelphia A's than the Philadelphia Phillies have won in 140 some odd years of existence. The A's were World Series champions in 1910, 11, 13, 29, and 30. But the messed up thing about the Philadelphia A's, and again, I'm speaking from historical context here. I was not present for any of this. I'm not, I wasn't there in 1911 when the A's won the World Series. But those World Series years were followed typically with long dry spells in between. So it was like feast or famine with the A's. They were either really good or just really bad. And when they were really good, they won championships. And when they were really bad, they were just really bad. But I guess in 1954, on this day, the city of Philadelphia had had enough. And they actually the city did. They blocked the sale of the A's to a group out of Philly that was going to try to keep the A's here. They wanted to do that, but the city said, you know what? We've had it. We don't want them anymore. We are not going to allow the sale of this baseball team to go down, thus prompting the move out west of the Oakland A's, but of the Philadelphia A's. Now, they did not settle in Oakland. No, they went a little bit kind of halfway. They went to Kansas City. They were the Kansas City A's starting in 1955 for a few years before them moving on to Oakland. They're in the 60s, I believe, late 60s, maybe early 70s, or late 60s, before becoming the Oakland A's. And now, of course, they are what are they now officially? Are they the A's baseball club? Do they even go by a city now? I mean, they're not Oakland. They don't have a place to play in Oakland. They won't be playing in Oakland. Are they the Sacramento A's? Are they the San Francisco A's? Because I've heard reports that they're going to play half their home games in Oracle Park, sharing it with the Giants. When are they going to be the Las Vegas A's? Because that's eventually where they're headed. But That stadium's not going to be ready for at least 2 more years, or I think 26 is when they're saying it might be ready. So what are they going by now? Are they the A baseball club? I don't know. But on this day in 1954, Philadelphia said adios to the A's as they began their whirlwind trip across America, which has now landed them somewhere in between Oakland and Las Vegas as they begin play in 2025. So that was your moment in Philadelphia sports history. The sale of the Philadelphia A's was blocked by the city of Philadelphia, sending the A's on out of here. And I know a lot of people actually don't remember that the A's were, Philadelphia based. Again, 1954 is when they left. That was their last season that they played in Philadelphia, and then they were on their way out of there. I always think it's cool when the A's come back, regardless if they're the Oakland A's, Kansas City A's, San Francisco A's, whoever they are. When the A's come back to Philadelphia, I think it's really cool. I always try to go. I didn't go this past year, but I think I was supposed to go in 2020 when that COVID thing happened, so I didn't get a chance to go then. But yeah, so the A's left on this day, or they didn't leave, but their sale was blocked on this day back in 1954. And there you go. There's your day in Philadelphia sports history. As I said, brought to you by the fine folks here at the It's a Wrap Sports Network. And now it's on to the business of the day. Victory Monday. That's right. Victory Monday. Your Philadelphia Eagles are 5-2. Riding high, man. Riding high. You cannot say that this game or this victory against the Cincinnati Bengals is not a legit proof of evidence that the Philadelphia Eagles are a Super Bowl contending team. Can you? Cincinnati is not having a good year now. They're now 3-5, but they still have a very potent offense. Their defense was never that good to begin with, but their offense kind of bailed them out, and did not happen yesterday as the Philadelphia Eagle defense did enough. Some players of note from the Eagle defensive attack that have really stepped up, in my opinion. Cooper DeJean, man, he is the real deal. And Quinyon Mitchell, I think it's safe to say that the Eagles have figured out, at least for the next, I think we can put it to bed, right? That the Philadelphia Eagles secondary, at least for the next 5 or 6, 7 years, is in good hands with those two. And they figured out that missing piece. And now maybe we can go and concentrate on other aspects of the defense. But they continue to have outstanding rookie seasons. They're all over the ball. There seems to be every pass play they're involved in. It's really good to see that. It's really good to see that they're contributing the way they are, especially right off the jump, because we know that we've had problems with rookies contributing, especially high draft pick rookies contributing right off the jump, as they are starting to do that as well. Now, Nakobe Dean seems to be resurrecting his career a little bit. Now, the only thing with Nakobe Dean is this: how long can he stay on the field? That is really the only question there with Nakobe Dean. And are the Eagles going to continue to keep him in good positions to be successful? Nakobe Dean has shown flashes of greatness this year. He's also shown flashes of Nakobe Dean, of not being able to cover anybody out of the backfield or getting lost in pass coverage in general. But he is a force to be reckoned with in the pass rush. He's a very quick person. A little undersized, but that's the way they are built these days, I guess. But now the ultimate topic with Nakobe is whether or not he can make it through a full season. And perhaps that's when we can put the Nakobe Dean thing to bed. But the defense in general played okay yesterday. It played okay. It is what it is with this defense. The defense is not what's going to win games for the Eagles. It's the offense that's predicated to win. And with all the money that's invested and all the time that was invested on that offense, it's the offense that's going to win games for the Eagles. And going back to, I guess I'm not even, the Browns game to me was back and forth. Now, this is they barely beat the Browns, and I thought they should have lost. Their offense didn't play well. But starting last week with the Giants and into this week, their offense has been starting to cook a little bit. And what's been the secret sauce of that cooking? What's been stirring that pot? It's been that rushing attack. Saquon Barkley is, through 7 weeks or through 8 weeks of the NFL season, is Saquon Barkley, is he a legitimate MVP candidate? Can you speak of him as an MVP candidate? If they were giving away first half MVP awards, is Saquon Barkley your offensive MVP in the NFC? Is he? I think he's a legitimate candidate. He's got to be considered. And if he continues on this pace and does not get hurt, at the end of the season, he is definitely, should be at least, in the conversation. He has been that influential and that good for the Philadelphia Eagles. And nobody, I'm not going to contest that. I'd be ridiculous to say that he hasn't. Yesterday, another great day for him. On the day, Saquon was 22 carries, 108 yards, 4.9 yards a carry, no touchdowns. But you know what? It doesn't matter, right? What the Eagles ended up doing once they got the lead, once they did get that lead, they played rushing attack football. And what does that do? It chews up yards, it chews up time, and they bled the clock. And that's how they ended up really kind of winning this game. And that was on the feet of Saquon Barkley. He's a difference maker. Now, Jalen Hurts also got into the rush game yesterday, maybe a little bit too much than people wanted him to. He was on the day for Jalen, 10 carries for 37 yards, but those carries yielded 3 touchdowns. As out of the 37 points scored, 3 of them were on the feet of Jalen Hurts or on the dives of Jalen Hurts or whatever. Jalen Hurts as a passer yesterday, and I want to break down Jalen in a second. Let's continue on with the rushing attack. So Saquon Barkley continues to impress and continues to be a difference maker for that offense, and you cannot dispute it. You can also not shoo it away like, it's no big deal. If they didn't have Saquon, they wouldn't be winning. Well, yeah, that's absolutely right, but you can say that about a lot of different players around this league. If they didn't have X and Y, they wouldn't be winning. They're winning, and they're 5-2. But there are concerns. That first defensive series for the Eagles in this game was terrible. The Eagles continue to not be able to produce points or get off to a quick start. They continue to struggle with scoring points. And up until about that 3-minute mark remaining in the first half, this game was back and forth. The Eagles ended up kind of sort of kicking into another gear at the end of the first half to kind of take seizure of the game. And that's fine. It worked out that way. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to crunch time, when it comes down to January friggin' football, when it comes down to one game and you're done, can the Eagles afford to continue to get off to such slow starts? Or are they going to have to eventually figure out their first quarter issues? Again, no points in the first quarter for the 7th straight game. All the games this season, they have not scored in the first quarter. On the season, on the day, they scored 10 first half points. On the season, the Eagles have scored 65 first half points. That's an average of 9.2 points a half. 9.2 points the Eagles average in first halves of the 2024 season. In historic retrospect to that, 27 points in the second half. Now they have scored 106 points in the second half, which is about 15.1 points. So a balance needs to be maintained, or a balance needs to be found where this team can, just get off to a better start. Because eventually it's going to be a stake in their heart. Eventually they're going to run up against a quarterback in an offense that once they get out ahead, they're not going to let the Eagles get back into it. And don't forget, once the Eagles are down, and say they go down by multiple scores, say they cannot do anything defensively like we've seen them do. Say they're down 14-0 in the second quarter. What's going to end up happening? They're going to abandon that rushing attack. They're going to abandon that formula that's been successful for them. And they're going to try to beat you through the air. And we've seen that Jalen struggles with that. And Jalen still is having issues with the offense. Now, yesterday, the balance attack, the run set up the pass, the old adage, right? And it did. Now, Jalen had himself a very serviceable day. I've heard people say he played a perfect game. Well, but he had a very serviceable day. 16 for 20 for 236, average 11.8 yards and a touchdown. So he accounted for 4 touchdowns, or all the touchdowns in some way or form. But we still have concerns. I still do, at least. I started keeping track of this thing last week, and let's continue on with it this week. So out of the 20 pass attempts that Jalen Hurts attempted, only 5 of them were down the middle of the field. Now, one was amazingly beautiful, that big touchdown pass to Devontae Smith. Huge play. So I think the numbers are, I have it written down. Where did I put that thing at? I wrote it down. So out of the last 2 games, Jalen Hurts has attempted 34 passes, and only 7 of those passes have been down the middle of the field. 34 pass attempts, and only 7 have gone down the middle of the field. And he's completed, and that averages out to 20% of the time when Jalen Hurts or the Eagles call a pass play, they're throwing down the middle of the field. Is that going to work? And if I'm picking up on it, and I don't know nothing about football, allegedly, what about defensive coordinators around the league? In an analytical-driven league, they're picking up on that. So they're going to start pushing the Eagles out to the sidelines, and the 50-50 hero ball stuff works at times, but it's nothing you can predicate an offense for. But yesterday, it worked when it needed to work, and the passing attack or the rushing attack set all that up beautifully. As I mentioned, 2 turnovers committed or forced yesterday. That brings their total up to 4 on the season. Getting up there now, man. There ain't no stopping us now. They're now averaging a half a turnover a game through 7 games. They did not commit any turnovers, as that continues to be a pleasant surprise. 3 straight games now of no turnovers. Still now 8 on the year. Just about 1 turnover a game. 1.1 if you want to be specific. They actually only went for it on 4th down 1 time this week, and they were 1 for 1, 11 for 16 now on the season. That seems to be a little high that they've gone for it on 4th down 16 times through 7 games. It works out to about 68%. And the big stat for me, of course, along with the turnovers, is red zone effectiveness, 3 for 5 yesterday. Now 14 for 25 on the year, and 56%, as that continued to trend in the right direction. Last week, I believe they were 3 for 3 in the red zone. This week, they're 3 for 5. So what, you go from 100%, 80%, I can live with that, as they're getting better in the red zone. Defense only got to Burrow 1 time, but that's the 20th sack of the Eagle defense over the course of 7 games. Of course, riding that wave of the last 2 games against the Cleveland Browns and the Giants. They only got to Burrow once, and I believe Jalen Hurts did not get touched. Yeah, no sacks allowed. So all in all, a very promising game for a team that's looking for something to grab onto. Promising game for a team that's looking to get some traction. And as we get later into the week, we're going to start dwelling into a little bit of the Jacksonville Jaguars, a different story of a team heading in a different direction. But does this game not have letdown written all over it? You know, it's the Kelly Greens. The Eagles are home for good God, man. This team never plays at home. First time since October 13th that they'll play at home on next week. So now November will be more of a home-centric type schedule, as they played a ton of road games. I don't remember starting the season out when the schedule first came out. And maybe it was the Brazil thing that threw me off, but I just didn't remember it stacked up this much with all these road games. It just kind of came as a surprise, but they'll be back home next week. Out of the prime time slot, they were flexed out of the 8:30 slot. Sunday Night Football, they're now at 4:05, whatever it is, as they will host Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that trade deadline is ticking along, and we're gonna update some of that NFL trade deadline stuff here when we go over some NFL scores in a little bit. Where are the Eagles in all of this? Where do they stand in the trade deadline? Me and Kyle spoke about this on Thursday. If the Birds would have lost these last 2 games, if they would have lost on Sunday to Cincinnati, and if they lost to Jacksonville this Sunday, does Howie become a seller instead of a buyer? I don't think that's possible now that they beat Cincinnati. I think at 5-2, even at 5-3, you try to go all in on potentially improving your team. But what does that mean? You know, the Myles Garrett talk is out there. You know, but what Cleveland did on Sunday in Baltimore, and what Cleveland's defense did specifically, what's that asking price going to be if Cleveland wants to move off of Myles Garrett? Just how we have the draft capital. We talked about that too. They only have a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and 3/5. Not a lot to work with in 2025. Before, of course, all the compensation picks are added into it, but still, those are 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks, right? So there's not much up top collateral-wise that Howie has to play with in 25. If he wants to trade it away, it better be for somebody that's not a rental player, one. You better be trading away for somebody who's still in the prime of their career and is still under contractual control, so that we don't lose them after 1 year. So that's going to be an interesting topic of conversation. Tuesday, November 5th at 4 p.m. is the trade deadline. I believe that's also Election Day. Isn't that Election Day? Why would the NFL do that? Why would they schedule trade deadline on Election Day? Interesting. But we'll see how that works itself out as we move deeper into the week. And with that, let's talk about the NFL this week. Week 9 or week 8 almost in the books. Let's go over some of the scores from this past weekend. We'll talk about the game that kicked it all off. The stunner out there in LA. 30-20 Rams over the Vikings. The Rams season seems to be resurrected. Are they now affected by this winning wave? Do they not move off of some of the rumored players that they were potentially going to trade away? Cooper Kupp was rumored to be on his way out. Stafford was on his way out. Do the Rams call off the dogs here? And now with a couple wins here, are they thinking they're back in this? The NFC West is a dreadful division this year. They have a shot here at 3-4. What do the Rams do at the trade deadline? Of course, we talked about the 37-17 Eagle win. The big upset of the weekend is that 29-24 Browns win over the Ravens on Sunday. The Lions put it to the Tennessee Titans 52-14. If you guys remember the first show of the first Birds Blast we did this season, which was it's always the prediction show, and we not only predict the NFC East and we talk about the Eagles, but we pick the NFL. We give our picks in divisions, playoffs, championship games, Super Bowl, whatnot. And I have the Lions going to the Super Bowl this year, playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. And right now, at 6-1, and the way they are beating teams, is there anybody out there that's better than the Detroit Lions, with the exception, of course, Kansas City? They are the class. It's Detroit here, and then the rest of the NFC. And then really, that's what it looks like right now, because they're just handling their business professionally and dominantly. It was a upset in Miami as Tua returned, but to no avail. 28-27 Cardinals over the Dolphins. The Patriots beat the Jets 25-22. Interesting side note to this game there at Gillette Stadium. I was actually literally right down the street while this game was going on. I was in right outside of Foxborough on Sunday, over the weekend, the whole weekend actually, working hockey games, and I was doing games, praying to God I get the hell out of there before this game ended. Thankfully, I was able to get out of there before the game ended, so I didn't have to deal with traffic trying to get out of that area. But Gillette Stadium, if you've never been there, and I had not been inside, but I've driven past it about 1,000 times. So the way they have it set up is pretty nice. It's got its own little village. You enter the stadium complex, big parking lots everywhere, and then they got like hotels, restaurants, all in front of the stadium. So everything is like one-stop shopping right there in this. They call it Patriot Place or something like that, I think it's called. And it's really nice how they have it set up. I really got to give them credit for that. It was the Falcons over the Buccaneers 31-26. It was Green Bay squeaking it out over Jacksonville, who of course will be here next week, 30-27. Houston over Indianapolis 23-20. It was the Chargers all over the Saints 26-8. Remember when we talked about the Saints being that dominant team way back in week 2 or week 3 when the Eagles were getting ready to play them? The Saints had just blown through the first 2 weeks of competition. I believe it was they beat Carolina, and I forget who they beat in week 1. But they came in to that Eagle matchup as one of the most dominant teams in the league. Alvin Kamara was tearing it up. Derek Carr was tearing it up. They averaging like 40 points a game. Well, they have not won a game since week 2, as they are now currently on a 6-game losing streak. They have fallen now to 2-6 on the season. They put up a measly 8 points against the Chargers. It was Buffalo 31-10 over Seattle. The Broncos 28-14 over the Panthers. It was the Chiefs staying perfect, 7-0. 27-20 winners over the Raiders, as the 1972 Dolphins wait breathlessly for that loss as they can pop the champagne on yet another season of continuing to be the only perfect team in the NFL. But every week that the Chiefs win, they got to put that champagne on ice for at least one more week. It was the Commanders on the Hail Mary by Jalen Daniels at the end of the game, 18-15 winners over the Bears. And it was the Cowboys losing to the 49ers last night, 30-24. Cowboys now 3-4 on the season. 49ers got back to 500 at 4-4. And currently tonight, the final game of your NFL sports week. It is 9-6 and a barn burner out in Pittsburgh between the Steelers and Giants, getting close to halftime. So there you have it. There are your scores around the NFL. We talked a little bit about the Eagles. I mean, we dissected it enough. I don't really want to get into. I mean, is there much more to say? I do want to talk about Devontae Smith. So Devontae Smith on the day had a great day. He really returned to the offensive picture. 6 receptions for 85 yards, and that big 45-yard touchdown reception there to kind of, in my opinion, not seal the deal, but you really kind of felt the game really turning at that point for the Eagles. And I talked to Kyle heading into this game on Thursday, because one of the pieces of this offense that has seemingly been on the outside looking in all season has been getting Devontae Smith the ball. And in an offense that features A.J. Brown, in an offense now that features potentially a very rush-heavy package in Saquon Barkley, how do you keep feeding the ball to Devontae Smith? And obviously the Eagles were able to work him into the offensive game plan this week, and it was great to see because he's a game changer. And maybe not a 1, but he's a strong 2. And obviously when he's catching passes and he's catching touchdowns and he's involved in the receiving game, it makes the team better. Now, AJ is going to get his, and we go over AJ's stuff all the time. 5 receptions, 84 yards, 29-yard long. He was targeted 6 times. Devontae was targeted 7. That's consistent, man. That's consistent. That's trying to get everybody involved as they definitely did yesterday. But as I mentioned, 20 pass attempts and only 5 over the middle, and that big 49-yarder to Devontae was a down the middle pass. But it's good to see him back in the offensive picture, at least for one night or 1 week. The Eagles got to do better with that. I would really like the Eagles to pick up a solid number 2, and hear me out. I'm not saying Devontae Smith is not a solid 2. I think Devontae would be amazing in the slot if he was a full-time slot guy. I think he would feast in the slot. They would get him out in space a lot in the slot. He would get opportunities with Yak. He would get all those kinds, because he could get separation coming off the line of scrimmage. He'd be running free down the seam just about every game. Unfortunately, though, they wouldn't have a number 2 to replace him with, because obviously it kind of falls off a cliff after A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You can't rely on any of the other wide receivers. Johanna Dotson, again, can we stop talking about Howie Roseman's greatness when it comes to trade? That trade was a fleece job by the Commanders, unloading that guy on the Eagles for a 3rd-round draft pick. No one talks about that, which I find very funny. But if we can find an actual number 2 wide receiver, and again, I'm not saying Devontae Smith's not a good 2. He is. But if we could find a 2 and line up Devontae Smith in the slot, I'm telling you, this would be an unstoppable offense. So we could still be 1 wide receiver away from making this offense truly unstoppable. As again, I think Devontae Smith in the slot would be amazing. But there you have it. Eagles with the win yesterday, continue the good vibes going, continue to win. Now 3 in a row. They went undefeated in October. They'll now turn the calendar to November, turn their attentions to the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday afternoon, and hopefully keep this thing rolling at least 1 more week into some 6-2 action before we enter Dallas week, the first of 2 of 2024. So we got the Cowboys coming up after the Jaguars. But this Jaguar game has letdown written kind of all over it for me. I think that's going to be a theme for me this week. How do the Eagles prepare for the Jaguars, and how do they not let letdowns creep in? This is the classic trap type game. Coming off of a 3-game win streak, this is classic, man. This is a classic trap game. How do the Eagles continue to keep it rolling? And we'll get more into that through the week. On the Bengals side of things, we wrap this up. Joe Burrow did have a day. I mean, everyone makes it sound like the Eagles dominated. They did not. 26 for 37 for 235 yards or 34 yards. Touchdown and an interception. Interception was a pretty athletic play by CJ DJ GJ. He made a nice little play on that ball. Chase Brown rushing the ball for the Bengals. A pretty anemic rushing attack. 12 carries, only 32 yards. Mike Gesicki. Listen, when Mike Gesicki is leading your offensive receiving on a team that features Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think something might have went off the rails a little bit. I don't think T. Higgins even played in this game. He didn't play. But Jamar Chase had 9 receptions for 54 yards, but Mike Gesicki led the way with 7 receptions, 73 yards. Good to see that from Mike Gesicki. Loved him in Penn State. Matter of fact, I rode him for 2 or 3 years exclusively as my tight end on my fantasy team. He never produced while he was a member of the Miami Dolphins, ever produced for me. Got fed up with him, stopped picking him up in the draft, stopped drafting him completely, stayed away from him. He was anemic in Miami when it came to fantasy football, but it looks like he's kind of caught on here in Cincinnati and is making a good go of it for himself, and I like to see that. Again, big Gesicki fan coming out of Penn State, but he was your leading pass catcher for the Bengals on Sunday in a losing effort, 37-17 to the Eagles. So there you have it, folks. 37-17, Eagles with the win. 5-2 now on the season. Moving on against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. We, of course, have you covered here on this network. Don't forget Thursday at 6:30 p.m.-ish, or, I say that ish-wise because sometimes we flex it. The Birds Blast will return as Kyle will make his triumphant return, and we will break down said Jacksonville Jaguar game on Thursday. Get you ready for the weekend. The quintessential, I like to call it the quintessential Eagles pregame show. Only here on It's a Wrap, the It's a Wrap Sports Network. And with that also being said, a programming note, we are literally 1 week away, 7 days in the window for the debut of the Wraparound with Sal G. Our boy Sal's going to come on and get his shot, get his much-deserved opportunity to have his voice heard on a weekly basis. At 7 p.m. Monday nights starting on November 4th. The Wraparound with Sal G will make its debut here on the network. Looking forward to that. Sal definitely deserves it. Does a lot of great work here on this network and other places around out there. So make sure you're following him out there, checking what he's got going on. And he's going to bring it here starting next Monday night. All right. So with the positivity of your Philadelphia Eagles, let that cup runneth over a little bit because we're going to need to capture it for the Flyers Cup. And that's pretty ironic that I'm saying Flyers and cup in the same sentence because that's about a drinking cup is about the closest thing that the Philadelphia Flyers are going to come to a cup for some time as this team continues its sluggish ways through the start of this season. What is it now? 2-6-1. As they went 1-1 over the weekend. It came down to a screwy game on Saturday, a shootout, not in the traditional sense, of course, but a shootout offensively driven game against the Wild where the Flyers uncharacteristically scored 7 goals to get the win. And I got to give them credit, man. The Wild were coming in, I believe, undefeated or 6-0-2 or something like that. And they handled their business, man. They handled their business against one of the better teams in the Western Conference. But then last night, on the heels of a back-to-back, they did not. They came out lethargic. They came out sluggish. They debuted a new goaltender, Alexei Kovalov, getting his opportunity here with the Flyers in the midst of a lot of drama around Alexei, and we'll get into some of that in a second. But he gets his opportunity to compete for that backup position. And let's face it, man, he's competing for the starting job too. That whole thing is wide open. If there's anybody who believes Sam Ersson is the solid number one, you're just fooling yourself. He's not. It's all a competition. Right now, the Flyers are rife with backup goalies. The problem is we don't have a starter. And right now, Alexei Kovalov getting his opportunity to at least be the backup now to Ivan Fedotov, who's apparently not John Tortorella is not Ivan Fedotov's biggest fan. Apparently, he's got some problems with the big tall Russian, especially with the big tall Russian's 5-hole, and about how wide open he leaves it. But Kovalov getting the opportunity last night against the Canadiens. And listen, there's a couple of things about Kovalov that really impressed me, and I'm going to break it down for you a little bit. I did the post-game show and got into a little bit of it last night. But here's the thing about Kovalov that I like. I like the fact that he's not 6'8". I like the fact that he's not a hulking giant. I like the fact that he's really kind of lower center of gravity, and he moves really quick. He's the fastest goalie I've seen that the Flyers have had that goes back and forth, at least through one game, mind you. All right, I'm using the smallest of sample sizes, one game. But the way Kovasov moves back and forth that crease, he's lightning quick, faster than Carter Hart was, who, by the way, and I'm putting the cart before. Let's talk this first. But I like his movement. I like his flexibility. I like the way he does track a puck. I also like the way he has rebound discipline. God damn, it's good to see that. Sam Ersson couldn't stop a rebound if you put it right in front of him. Sam Ersson's got mega problems when it comes to rebound discipline. Ivan Fedotov, same thing. Can't see it because he's a hulker. I mean, he's too big. But Kovasov definitely has the ability to track a puck well and control that rebound. Again, through one game. Now, is he susceptible to the speed of this game? Of course he is. Is he susceptible to the pace of the NHL game? Of course he is. It's his first friggin' game. He's going to have to kind of grow into that. But Kovasov does have the opportunity, and he does show potential. I think at least more potential than Fedotov shows at this particular moment in time. And right now, when you have a job or a position that's completely wide open on this team, and that might be the biggest position that's completely wide open on this team right now, is the goaltending position. Why not? And if he doesn't work out, well, Carson Bjornsson's right there in the wings, down there with the Brandon Wheat Kings of the Western Hockey League. Bring his ass up. If that doesn't work out, then let's go grab Igor Zaradin, who's out there in the KHL. Bring him over. We got 7 guys we got to get through before we figure out who the next goalie is. And that moment starts now. So the open audition is on. And right now, Alexei Kovasov has center stage, especially as the backup. So the Flyers were down 4-1. And I'm not going to blame the goaltender on this. Was there one goal or two, maybe 2 goals that I'll kind of, Kovasov kind of got beat pretty bad. Yeah, I'll give him that, right? But, he played a solid game. And for his first game, it was pretty good. Montreal's not a good team. They're not. They're like a level above the Flyers. They're a fringe playoff team. So that's concerning. But he played okay. It's the Flyers that didn't play well. It's that anemic offensive attack. It's that it takes you 3/4 of the game to wake up offensive attack. It's that spotty defense. It's those friggin' giveaways. Now, the National Hockey League, mind you, defines a giveaway as any unforced error that results in the puck or giving up the puck to the opposition. So what is that in layman terms, folks? That is like a whiffed pass, a whiffed, you're going down the boards and you overskate it, or you go for a pass and you miss it, or you pass the puck inadvertently to somebody, or it's something that the opposition does to you that doesn't do to you, that you do to yourself. That is what the NHL defines as a giveaway. And through 7 or 9 games so far in 2024-25, the Flyers have been victimized by 131 giveaways through 9 games. 14.5 a game. It's absurd. That's an absurd number of giveaways. And on the other side of the coin, a takeaway, which the Flyers have only gotten 50 of so far this year. NHL defines takeaways as a player takes the puck from the opposition rather than gaining possession through opposition error. So what does that mean? I don't know, winning a battle in the corner, back checking and winning a battle, or the same thing. Somebody muffs on a pass or overskates something or fans on something else. The Flyers have only been rewarded, or I shouldn't say rewarded. The Flyers have only done that 50 times all season for a putrid 5.5 times a game. So they're taking the puck away 5.5 times a game, and they're giving it away 14.5. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out what one of the problems with this team is. It's now whether that's because they are pressing, whether that's because they are frustrated, whether that's because they are trying to overcompensate for a lack of skill in other areas of the game, it could definitely be debatable. Absolutely. This is not a complete team. I don't care what you say. I don't care who you are out there. If you're sitting there right now with Stanley Cup aspirations for this hockey team, you're a fool. You're a misguided fool. This team is not a Stanley Cup contender. This team is not a Stanley Cup contender. This is a rebuilding club. And as much as that might irk some people to say, or might irk some people to hear me say that, it's the reality of the situation. This team has been mismanaged negligently for years. And there's no sense in dwelling upon that. What you should be happy about is that the process, and yes, that's the word that everybody hates to hear, but it is the word that's applicable here. The process of fixing that is ongoing, but it doesn't happen overnight. We examined the Flyers salary cap situation last week on the program. Heading into next season, the Flyers have got about $13 million of cap space right now available. That's 22nd in the league. So they're not rebuilding this team through free agency. That's not going to happen for at least the next 3 or 4 years until the contracts of the light. Again, we went over this last week. Chuck Fletcher's contracts that he gave out in his tenure here. Couturier, Lawton, Farabee, Sanheim, Ellis, Risto, Deloria. It goes on and on and on of bad contracts. It's just the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about going back in the time and fixing it. It was mismanaged. It was mishandled. It was negligent. But Chuck Fletcher's not here no more. But we're left to pick up the mess or clean up the mess, and that's going to take time. And as I said, the Flyers are not going to be able to do this through free agency next season. They don't have the money. They could possibly, the only 2 ways they can get out of this hole fast is one of the ways that they're doing right now, accumulating assets. Sean Walker is a name that comes up all the time when we discuss the Flyers. Obviously, trading Sean Walker last season sent this team into some sort of cataclysmic collapse. Right? Maybe he was the glue holding it all together. I don't know. But we got an asset back. It was a first-round draft pick, right? That's an asset we need. We don't need Sean Walker. Sean Walker was a great story. But Sean Walker's not the missing piece to the Flyers Stanley Cup puzzle. He's not. He might be the missing piece to somebody else's Stanley Cup puzzle. But he's not ours. So it was the smart thing to do to move off of him for a first-round draft pick asset in the future. That's what the Flyers are going to have to do. Try to move off of some of these bad contracts. Try to move off of some of these players. Yes, some of these players for potential first-round draft pick assets in the future. That's the only way they're going to do it. They can't do it through free agency. Not for the next 2 or 3 years they can't. It's just the way it is. And there's no, I don't care if you don't accept it. I don't. It's just the reality. And all the filler, all the fluff, all the puffs of smoke are just that. They're puffs of smoke. It doesn't matter what the Flyers do this year. Hashtag horrible for Higgins, folks. James Higgins, the consensus number 1 pick in the 2025 NHL draft. We have a chance with a bunch of draft capital this year. I mean, 2 firsts, 2 seconds. That's all coming up at 25. Why not? Let's shoot up that draft board and let's go for it. Because we need impact players. And we have one in MattyB. He's the real deal. And he's going to be the real deal. And just imagine how good he's really going to be when he's playing for a good team. And that's a clock race right now. Trying to build around MattyB. That's the face of the franchise. That's who you're building around. Travis Konechny is not the face of this franchise. And if he is, that's part of the problem why they're not a good hockey team right now. Travis Konechny is a very good player. But he's not a player that's going to hold you to a Stanley Cup. He's not. And that was a bad contract. Because I give Chuck Fletcher a lot of grief. But these are the contracts that Danny B has given out. Travis Konechny, Tippett, and Sealer. I don't agree with any of that. I don't think Konechny should have gotten that 8-year deal. They should have traded his ass. He would do better for this team being traded in the future when it really matters than he's going to do with an 8-year contract with an AAV of close to what? $5 million? So the struggles of this team are harder to accept right now because of what happened last year. And I get that. And I totally feel you there. But the struggles of this team are a real thing. They are who they are. And that's who they are. They are a rebuilding team. 2 years into a rebuild. You're not going to sell me on anything else. It doesn't matter to me that the Flyers don't make the playoffs this year. It doesn't. They're not winning a Stanley Cup. Even if they got into the playoffs, they weren't winning a Stanley Cup for a multitude of reasons. No true number one goaltender. Tell me who the number one center on this team is. We have a lot of inconsistencies on our blue line right now, which is very concerning because that was one of the strengths heading into the season was that blue line of young defenders. And that's even worse now with Cam York being on the IL. So we don't have strength. We have confusion on the blue line, no true number one center, and no true starting goaltender. What idiot out there thinks the Flyers are a playoff team? And I get it. It's frustrating. And I get it. You shouldn't have to accept it. But yes, you do because it's a reality. And yes, Danny B, is he to be held accountable? Yes and no. He's to be held accountable for rebuilding this team. And it's not going to be an overnight process. It's been 2 seasons. It's not even been 2 seasons. It's been 1 season and 9 games since they started this thing with a salary cap that is unworkable with. Again, you can't just wave a magic wand and have players appear. You got to develop them, draft them, and do all those things. And the Flyers can't buy a team right now. They just can't do it. So the struggles of the 2-6-1 Flyers through first 9 games are real. Okay, they're real. And it's going to be a struggle all season. Will the Flyers ever get back to 500? I don't know. I don't know if they ever will. Was the schedule unforgiving to start the season? Yes, it has been. You don't start on a Western Canadian / West Coast trip and play as many back-to-back games as the Flyers have to start the season. You don't do that without it really becoming a problem and taxing your team. I get that. You can't blame it. But what did Tortorella say? When the league doesn't respect you, the schedule reflects. And the league doesn't respect the Flyers. And rightfully so, they shouldn't. So they got to play where they got to play. But it's not all bad. It's not. Heading into tomorrow night's game in Boston, which is going to be yet another challenge, the Flyers have gone 8 for 34 on the power play. 23.5% effective on the power play. That is up what? 11% effective from last year. Flyers finished at 12.2 effective on the power play in 2023-24. They are now 23.5% effective on the power play. A much improved unit that is definitely doing it with less. MattyB Michkov is a huge plus to that group. They're more creative, and that's because they have a playmaker. Imagine when they get 2 playmakers, how much more creative they can be on the power play. And they've shown it. 8 for 34 is no joke. They didn't score their 8th power play goal last year until sometime in February. So keep that in mind, everybody, as they get through this season. So that's been impressive. The penalty kill still continues to be a very strong suit of this team. 85.7% effective through 9 games. So there are some good things to talk about when it comes to the Flyers. When you kind of boil it down to the micro, the micro. But when you look at this thing macro, it's not too promising because they're rebuilding. And again, that's just the reality of it all. And I am not all in for a trip to the playoffs in 24-25 to get bounced out in the first round because they are not, repeat after me, they are not a Stanley Cup contender. And that's just the reality. And it's all about becoming one. Now, of course, Cam York getting sent to the IL doesn't help. Cam York is a bright spot. Cam York is one of my favorite young Flyers. I equate him to a young Mark Howe. I think that's what he's going to actually kind of grade out to be. But he'll spend the next 2 weeks at least on IL dealing with an upper body injury. And also Jetlachenko, the magical story from the training camp and preseason has ended. Lachenko is back in major junior Canadian hockey with the Guelph Storm of the Ontario Hockey League as he will return to Guelph to help them with what they got to do. But you have not seen the last Jetlachenko. You haven't seen the last Jetlachenko this season. I implore you, go out there and find where you can watch Guelph Storm hockey. I know I'll be watching them. And then also, don't forget his legit chance, big time chance of making it to the Team Canada on the World Juniors here in late December up there in Ottawa. So he should be representing Team Canada this year. So make sure you're looking out for him. Again, we haven't seen the last of him in a Flyers uniform. So that's all the great stuff coming from out of Philadelphia or out of Flyerland this weekend as the Flyers continue their early season struggles now. 2-6-1. Got the Boston Bruins tomorrow night. Sam Ersson will probably be back in net for the Flyers as they'll be up in Beantown on Soap Night. You guys remember Soap Night, right, from back in the day? But yeah, so there you go. There's my Flyers take for the night. And tomorrow night, I have the post-game show. So with that being said, I believe it's me tomorrow night. Is it Sal tomorrow? I think it's me. If it is me, I'll just be doing the post-game. There will not be a final word tomorrow. It'll just be me in the postgame. If not, if it's Sal, I will follow Sal directly after the postgame. So stay tuned for that. I got to talk to the schedule makers here over on the It's a Rap Sports Network to tell me what show I'm doing. But no, I think it's me. I don't know. Sal, if you're listening, do you have the postgame tomorrow night? I'll check it as soon as we get off the air, but I think it's me. But with that being said, before we wrap up our Flyers talk or our hockey talk for the night, let's take a look at the scoreboard around the NHL on this Monday night. It is currently 3-2, Florida over Buffalo in the third period. It's just underway in the third. It's 4-0. Blue Jackets over the Oilers about halfway through the third. 2-1 Lightning over the Predators, about 4 minutes remaining in the second. It is 4-2 Maple Leafs over the Jets in the towards the end of the second. Nothing as they're just underway out there in Utah between the Sharks and the Hockey Club. And at 9 p.m. tonight, or just starting now on ESPN, is the Blackhawks and Avalanche. Hurricanes and Canucks are just about to get started, as well as the Flames and the Golden Knights a little bit later on out there in Vegas. So there's your trip around the NHL scoreboard on this Monday night. Kind of a half and half night around the NHL, right? Last thing we'll talk about hockey related before we move on to our final couple segments. Of course, this is our prospect. It's time for our prospect of the night segment here on the program. Not each night, a couple nights out of the week, we will highlight a prospect player from either the Phillies or the Flyers. As we get into the seasons, it'll be more seasonable. Obviously, we're into the hockey season now, so we're going to go Flyers. We've been doing Flyers for the last 3 weeks. We're going to continue on the Flyers road. But as we move deeper into like January and we get closer to the start of the Phillies season, we're going to start highlighting Phillies prospects. We'll also do we're going to do Philly Spotlight player cards here coming up in January as we prepare for the 2025 baseball season, as well as starting in January, start getting you ready for the NHL draft. We'll take a draft target player of the night, or we'll do that with all this stuff, with all the prospects and the draft, because we got to also add in the MLB draft too. With all that starting, we'll probably end up doing a player a night for each of those categories. It'll keep us going all week long. But for right now, while it's still quiet in October, we're centered in on the Flyers. And tonight, it's the prospect player of the night is a Flyer. It is Spencer Gill. That's right, baby, Spencer Gill, the right-handed defenseman from the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. He is the right-hand defenseman who was drafted in the second round of this past draft by the Flyers. Matter of fact, he was involved, I believe, in the compensation with the Edmonton Oilers for the trade. There was a trade involving the Flyers' compensation from the Jetlachenko trade. Ended up being Spencer Gill. He was taken by the Flyers early in the second round. A coveted right-handed defenseman. You can never have too many of those. Again, what his little bio reads, Gill is a physical and imposing defenseman who flashes impressive playmaking and scoring abilities. At 5'11" and 185 pounds, I hope that he's good offensive, because I don't know what he's going to do with defense at that stature. Needs to get a little bit heavier, if you ask me. But he's a scorer. But says he can hit. Oh, he can hit the smallest of passing lanes, beat opponents with fakes and float shots to the top of the net with a bit of deception. So he has definitely got an offensive upside to his defensive ability. And again, a right-handed shot. A little bit like another Flyer defenseman currently on the team, Jamie Drysdale. Kind of has that Jamie Drysdale little profile thing going on with him right now. So obviously a right-handed, maybe on the power play, quarterbacking on that power play unit, starting things at the point, trying to create offense from the point on the power play, a lot like what Jamie Drysdale does currently for the Flyers. So Spencer Gill is your Flyer prospect of the night. And currently through the early part of this season for Rimouski Oceanic of the QMJHL, the Quebec Junior Major Hockey League, Spencer has played in 11 games. He has no goals, 6 assists, 6 penalty minutes, and no goals, 6 assists, 6 points, 17 penalty minutes, and a gaudy +8. So they score a lot when he is on the ice. So there you have our prospect player of the night is a Flyers prospect, right-hand defenseman, Spencer Gill, selected in this year's, the previous draft, 2024, in the second round. There you go. Spencer Gill. Got a cool name, too. Spencer Gill. And again, make sure that you're liking and subscribing all this stuff here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Bang on that that bell down there for the YouTube page. Subscribe. Turn the notifications on. Keep us going. Feed me, Seymour. All right? We need some help. We need some loving as we're trying to grow this network. All right. So we covered a lot. We went through some scores. We went through the NFL. We talked Eagles. Did we overreact? I don't think I'll overreact to the Eagles. Maybe I do on the negative. Maybe that's what I do. Maybe I overreact negatively about the Eagles. I don't know, but I sure as hell don't do it positively. But a positive win, nonetheless. We went into the Flyers a little bit as well. Sixers talk. I am reserving Sixers basketball talk until this team resembles a team. I'm not talking about it until the 2 big pieces are back in the lineup and they're playing. Until then, I'm boycotting the Sixers, as I have been prone to do in the past. I am not talking about a team that features Tyrese Maxey and then Kyle Lowry. I'm not talking about a basketball team that features that right now. I will talk about a team that's supposed to win a championship. And until Embiid and George are back in the lineups, we're going to reserve our Sixer talk until later on. I'm boycotting. So for you basketball people out there, I'm sorry to be so harsh and to lay down such a stiff punishment, but I've had enough. I've had enough of the Sixers years ago, but I really have had enough, and I'm not going to talk about it until that certain time. So which leads me to my final segment of the night, but it is the most fun segment of our night, the MattyB's card review segment, where I take a sports card from my collection, and we just talk about it. We have some fun with it. We started it last week. It's going to be a daily segment because I have a lot of cards to go through, and I got to get started. So we're going to do a card tonight. Last week, our highlights were the Ken Griffey 90 rookie tops card, the Pete Rose 87 tops, his player card, not his manager card, because he has a manager and a player card in that set. First time, I think, one of the very only players in MLB or baseball card history that can say that he has a player card and a manager card in the same set. We talked a little bit about Fernando Valenzuela on the heels of that tragic death last week of the pitching legend from the Dodgers. We went over, I believe, his 90 Donruss. So we kept it going. Tonight, kind of on the World Series theme, and we'll get to the World Series here at the very end, but we're kind of taking it a World Series way. We're going to talk about one of the current players that's participating in the World Series, and let's start the process. Let's start the show right now. Let's key the music.
Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad. What? Looks a little something like this. Looks a little bit like I can't miss. Hey, this is what you call a bad. What? This is what you call a bad.
All right, there you go. There's the cute little music and the little intro that we did. I changed the music. Last week it was this freaky alien-like robot music, but now it's a little bit more upbeat, as the kids would say. So here we go, MattyB's card review segment. Again, tonight featuring a player that's currently playing in the World Series. I'm going to go to his 2018 rookie card. This is Juan Soto's Topps 2018 rookie. Base card, nothing special, no gold base to it, no refractor, no chrome, just a straight base card from the 2018 Topps set. This card right now, as we look at players like Soto and you look at Oshani, you look at those players, you look at Mike Trout, you look at Judge, Stanton. These are the cards, if you're looking for a financial windfall currently in the baseball card market, it's those players that you should be focused on and getting some of the hot cards for these guys. As I said, this is a base card. There's nothing whimsical or fancy about this card. It's straight out of I believe Series 2 of 2018. Series 2. It's the updated series. So But this card currently, if you're looking around the internet, and I looked at couple different sources on this card today, a myriad of prices all over eBay right now, anywhere ranging from $63 all the way up to about $128 currently on the mark or on the chopping block on eBay. But if you look at other sites, depending, of course, again, I always say this. This card all my cards are raw cards, so they have not been graded by PSA. They have not been graded by anybody. So you could be sitting on more money than you think you are, because obviously with a higher PSA grade, the more money it's worth. And I found a PSA 10 currently going on sale or being sold or selling for $340. So again, this is a base stripped down model of a card, nothing flashy or fancy about it. Just a really nice card. It's this rookie card. As you can see, the RC logo there on the front of the card. This is what Topps featured as his rookie card. And again, $340 currently right now. Again, ranging anywhere between $40 to $340. But it all depends. And again, tonight's card is strictly from the financial aspect of things, right? It's from the faces of today's game. This obviously this card does not elicit any memories from my youth, because this card came out like 5 years ago. So I wasn't young 5 years ago. But here is the actual physical card right here. I'm holding it in my hand. As I look at this card, again, it's a raw card. But judging it by my very limited grading abilities, edges are sharp, centering is really good, picture quality is very good. I'm not saying this is a PSA 10. Not. But I'm not telling you also this is a PSA 7. This is somewhere between, I would say, 9 and 10. I think this is a 9 or a 10. But I'm not going to go out and tell you it's a 10, because there's so much that goes into making a card a 10. But this card is definitely up there. It's around 9 or 10. But this is strictly a financial type situation when it comes to a card like Juan Soto. Now, based on what he's done so far in his young career, playing in another World Series, already won one. He's playing in another one. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He's going to potentially be in the running for MVP this year. Maybe had a huge hit in the ALCS for the Yankees. So this card is one of those cards that right now are featured basically for its financial abilities later on in life. So, but this is a good card for me. I have about 9 of these actually in my collection. I do, and that's always good to have for trading value or whatever. But again, 2018 Juan Soto rookie card from Topps. Strictly a financial type card for me at this point. There's no other value that I have of this card. I'm not a Juan Soto fan, not yet at least, until maybe he decides to sign here. But and we could always hope for that. But this is a good card. Again, it's the face of today's baseball. Ohtani is the face of today's baseball. Right now, if you could get your hands on Ohtani cards, if you have the ability, and I don't care from this year until their rookie years, Ohtani's big, Soto's big, Judge is huge, and Stanton, based on his kind of revival in this postseason, is starting to get really good. So go out and get some of these newer cards, and if you can get them in the flashier chrome, refractor, the shimmers, the glitters, the gold, the leaf, all that, if you can go get those cards, they're obviously more expensive, or more valuable. But tonight's MattyB's card review, we're talking about the 2018 Topps rookie Juan Soto, anywhere between $40 to $340 that I've seen currently being listed as sale. One sold, just this base model here, one sold 2 weeks ago for $764, a PSA 10. So again, very profitable card, and it continues to grow in profit and grows in financial windfall with the success of a player. So there you have it. MattyB's card review, Juan Soto, 2018 Topps. And that brings us to the final part of our show tonight, which, of course, is our World Series check-in. Currently now into the bottom of the 6th inning is 4-0. 4-0 Dodgers over the Yankees, as they are being two-hit, the Yankees are, into World Series game number 3. Gattrall is throwing a gem for the Dodgers right now, as he has not given up anything other than 2 hits, or he's in there pitching 4 in relief. But yeah, 4-0. Dodgers up 2-0 in the series. If the Dodgers win tonight, they put really the death grip on the Yankees at 3-0, and probably the end of that series. But yeah, Dodgers definitely showing a little bit of flex right now as they are handling their business, especially through the first 2 games of this World Series. So there you have it. Dodgers up 4-0 in this game. Freddie Freeman, another home run tonight. Tonight on the night, Freeman was 1 for 2 with 2 RBIs. So 2-run homer for Freeman as he may be making a case for himself as World Series MVP. Had that big grand slam in Game 1. We haven't really talked since Game 1. We haven't talked since before Game 1. But, yeah, so Dodgers are looking like and then another card, Freddie Freeman. I got a bunch of them, too. Bunch of Freemans with the Braves and the Dodgers, too. So that's a good card to look at there as well. But there you are. Dodgers up 4-0 on a blink of taking a 3-0 lead in the World Series and putting the Yankees really in a bad way, which is okay by me. So there you have it, folks. That is going to do it for tonight. Come to the end of a great show. I want to thank everybody for their viewership. I want to thank everybody for their support. I want to also plead for your support. If you have not already given it to this program or this network, go ahead and like and subscribe on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms out there. Help us grow. Help us be what we want to be. And that is what we want to be. So we will talk again tomorrow, either through the post-game with the Flyers or on this show. Until we do, you guys have a great rest of your night and an even better tomorrow.